Hi, Maien. Okay, great. So this question is a good question, I think, in terms of trying to revise very carefully this issue of absorption. So the first issue here, in simple terms, if you just take it step by step, is that typically we have departments, for example, A, B, C, and D. You have production departments where they're actually making units, real units, and we have certain departments where no units are made. So these are typically like service functions. So we cannot charge, but these areas all have overheads. The problem here is that the overheads here need to be transferred into here, right? Because when we transfer the overheads into here to get the full cost, we can now split the full cost over their units, so we can know what the cost of each unit is. This is our dilemma. How do we get these overheads from here, these non-production divisions, into the actual production divisions to then cost and therefore sell? And that's what this is asking. This is sort of saying there are two ways of doing this. The first way is pretty much, I think, the nicer way, which is what they do. So they tell you that you have this general, remember, they will have their own individual overheads first, but then in addition to that, you have a general factory overhead. So we have a general factory overhead of 210. And what they're telling us is typically what they do is they split it by floor area for production and service costs first. So let's go ahead and see so let's just look at what that looks like, what that means. That means that you have, let's look at the problem. So you can see here it says budgeted overheads before the general fixed overhead. So each of them has their own overhead first. And then let's look at the floor area. That's the floor area. So they're saying, first of all, split this 210, it might be rent, 1,010 first, according to the ratio of the floor area. Right? So I need to split this 210 in the ratio 5 to 10 to 15 to 70. That's your first task. Really. So really, in effect, this is add these together. So whatever, 15, 30, 100. Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. So it's the percentages, of course. So 5% of this, 10% of this, 15% of this, and 70% of this. And that's how they're asking us to split this. So let me just go straight here and show you what this looks like. You can see here, that's my, yes, that's my 210 split. 5% of this is this, 10% here, and there you have each of them first of all split. But again, like I said, now I have a total figure here of 104,300, and I have a total figure here of 59,600. These two figures here are useless right now. We need to get these two figures into the products. So the question is, how could I get them into the product? If we go back here, it tells us here that you can get it. They tell us how they actually choose to do it is that they say that it's just very, it says the support center 1 is reapportioned based on the number of personnel in each production center. So if I'm going to say, my next question is what is the factory personnel in each area? I have 63 people here and 9 people here. So the first method completely ignores the fact that you have personnel working for each other. We'll see that in the second part. But the first part is pretty straight. It says just split it based on the ratio of the people working in these areas. And therefore, that's in the ratio 63 to 9. It's just saying take this cost and split it in the ratio that this cost is being driven by the factory personnel, if you like. And that's that. So really we're saying this, well, not this one, but this plus the apportioned, we'll go back to the question now of, I think it was 5,001, something like that. Let's go back here. Or 10,500. So this cost of 104, we need to split in the ratio 63 to 9, which is what they've done, you see. 63 over 72 times 104, which is why they've got rid of this, gives you this. 9 divided by this gives you this. So you now have, this is now gone. All I have now left is this 59,600, and they tell us to split this based on the usage of services by each production center. So let's look at the usage of services. Usage of services. Here we are, 4,000 to this. So this is just the first method. So this is the ratio basically for basically 4 over 29 and 25 over 29. And that's what they're asking us to do. So let's come back here, and then I come back here, and what do I now have? You see 4 over 29, 25 over 29. So I split this now. This is now gone into this and to this. So now I have total costs of this. So now I have my total costs. So all the costs are now in here. And of course, it tells me that I can calculate it per labor hour. So I know how many hours I spent here. They're told it's 120. Here it's 20. So I can find what the labor rate is, if you like, per hour now. So that's the first method that we can use. I think the question goes on to ask you, why is one higher than the other? Well, it must be, right? So this year you had £3.10. Next year you have £2.61. So it must be because the overheads are less. So it's either because, you see, typically this is the ratio is overheads divided by direct labor hours. So if this has gone down from £3.10 to £2.61, my answers are either because my labor hours have either increased and I've been able to keep the overheads the same, or the overheads have fallen, if you like, and the labor hours are pretty much the same. So either there's more activity or less activity. It's either due to activity, of course, right, because that's to do with labor hours, or overheads themselves. So that's kind of the same approach here. So here we have £11 going to £16.81. So it means that the overheads themselves are actually increasing. We're expecting more overheads in that area. So you can have, of course, increase and increase, but just this, that the increase here is greater than the increase here. That's kind of the first thing. The second method, which is just sort of taking into account the fact that sections work for each other. So, and that's referred to as reciprocal, if you like, reciprocal allocation. So exactly like before, we start off with this, and then we recognize that we will take into account, so we're going to split this cost of one, yes, we're going to split this, where are we? Yes, initial allocation, 104, 59,000, where are we? So we have, yeah, because we're going to split, yes, it does tell us that this is split based on personnel, doesn't it? It says that this is based, you split this cost based on the factory personnel. We saw that already. Personnel. And we can see here from this question that just by looking at this, we have, I'm including this division as well. I didn't do that the first time. I just took this and just split it only by this. The second method is slightly longer, but it's saying that, okay, so I have 104,300, split it. It's cause these people are servicing these guys, they're servicing these guys, they're servicing these guys. So split it 3 ways. So that's 18 over 90 because you had 18 people here, 63 people here, and 9 people here. So if I split it 3 ways, I will be splitting it 18 over 90 times 104. 18 over 90, let's just, if you do that, 18 divided by 90 times 104,300. Right, actually, no, it's not that. Let me just see, what have I missed? I'm missing something. 18 over 90, let me just times, wait a minute, let me just go back to the question to see why my figures are coming out slightly differently. 1 second, let me just go back here. So I have here factory personnel 10, 18, 10, 10%, 0.1 times 104,300. That's 10,4003. Just come here. Right. Okay, so they've done a bit more work here. Let me just see if I can do this really quickly without having, because I was just going to simply jump in there and do that. Let me just see, because I've started making this video. I don't want to cancel it now. let's just work through this very quickly. To fully recognize the existence of reciprocal service changes, you must adopt either... Oh, okay. So there's two ways of dealing with this. Which one do they want to use? Right, okay. So let's just look at the method. There are two ways of dealing with it. If you look through the videos, we talked about repeated distribution or simultaneous equations. Which one do they intend on using? This is long. Right, so if we're going to use, okay, let X be the total cost of service center 1, okay, and Y, right? So therefore, you know what I think, Maien? Ignore this example of this. It's just very long and winded. We have better examples, and when you do the questions in the exam, please use those. The key point here is that from what I've done, the first part, and the second part, yes, we will discuss, we will look at nice, better, clearer examples of repeated distribution and or simultaneous equations, right? But this is it's too much. The numbers aren't nice. It's too long-winded. But we have clearer, simple examples that look like the exam, right? So please ignore this example. I was gonna just use one example one way, but they want to use the repeated distribution, and I have better ways of explaining this than using this. Okay, great stuff. So that's the end of that video. So just focus only on the first part, A, and I will discuss B using other videos when we get to those questions.